It's a marathon, not a sprint. As two South American title races head into the final stretch, two in Europe could be heading for a photo finish. We'll discuss all four with our panel of betting experts, offering as many as 10 tips on this bumper show. All that and more on today's episode. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram.
Hello, Dan. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Enjoying the midweek football, Amazon Prime's coverage. Always fun.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I'm not sure about the Amazon Prime coverage, but I gave the Jeff Stelling Go Show a watch last night for a bit and flicking between the games, and it was okay. I kind of enjoyed myself. You got to see all the replays, obviously. So
you didn't fancy not watching any football and just watching the overlap live watch along?
Is that a thing?
They did that last night. Yeah,
that's not really up my street, I don't think. So
if you like Gary Neville screaming and running around the studio,
give that a miss going forward.
Yeah.
Gary Neville moaning and groaning like he does on commentary. That sounds absolutely terrible. But not for me. Montage.
Yeah. Also joining us today, Daniele. How are you doing, man?
Hello, hi everyone. All good, thank you.
Yes, and once again, back again, Nathan Joyce.
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be back just to round out the crazy South American seasons in both Argentina and Brazil.
Yes, we will get to South America in a little bit. Let's start in Europe and start with the Premier League. Big few results in midweek in the Premier League. Arsenal picking up a win, Liverpool dropping points at Newcastle. Sam, I want to throw this to you just in a general sense of the title race. How does this affect things? How are you looking from a betting angle? Liverpool's odds have risen from 1.57 to about 1.8.
Yeah.
Are you liking that? Still a bit short?
It's probably about right maybe now. City's gone from 9.0 to 7.0. Arsenal from 3.75 to 3.25 after last night. City obviously closing ground on Liverpool with that 3-0 win at Forest. Kevin De Bruyne was back, started, makes that team tick as he has done for the past few seasons. I've crunched a few numbers and looked at the lowest points return to win the league in the last decade. And that was Leicester with 81 points. That was the smallest return. And as it stands, City on 24 points, they need 57 points from 24 games to reach Leicester's total, the lowest total in the last decade. If they achieve that, they'd be averaging a 2.37 points per 90 return from now until the end of the season. And that's just to reach 81 points, which lifted Leicester the title in 2015-16. So to put that into perspective, Liverpool are running at a 2.50 points per 90 average over the first 14 games. And they're flying, in form, ruthless. Unlucky last night against Newcastle. Should have probably seen that out late. Should have probably seen that out after going in front late on. City in their current shape. Are they going to win the title? I'm not sure I can see it. We know there's a version of this City side that has it in them to go and win 15, 20 games in a row or something daft like that. But this version of Manchester City, the one we see in front of us right now, I'm not so sure. Is it too early to rule them out of the title race? Maybe. But what I would say is I think it's going to be very difficult for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, you were very bullish on your approach with City last season. The second those prices started going above evens, you were topping up on your City to win the title. You can get them at 7.0 in December, Sam. Is there a chance that City just go out and buy half a team in January and go on one of those runs? There are weaknesses in this Liverpool team, weaknesses in this Arsenal and Chelsea team as well. Any chance of that? Do you fancy it 7.0?
I don't fancy it 7.0 personally, but there is every chance. If Liverpool go to Everton, go to Goodison Park on Saturday, Everton get the win like they did in April, City make another 3 points on Liverpool, then it all starts looking a bit more rosy, and City are probably down to 4-1 to win the title. Like, these things can change and quickly. But just if we're going off, recent Premier League trends and points totals and what it would usually take to win the Premier League, it's just so hard to make a case for them, especially right now, especially when there's areas of the pitch they're clearly struggling in.
No. Are you eyeing anyone else up in this title race? Chelsea out to 13, currently second in the table on goal difference.
Yeah, look, I wanted to mention Chelsea because I know everyone's going to be discussing like a so-called three-horse title race, which is probably fair enough. But if you look at Chelsea, they're in second behind Liverpool, level on points with Arsenal, 7 points back from Liverpool now. But they're out at 12-1. So I don't think they have enough to win the Premier League title, especially defensively. But it's a big price and they have plenty going for them. What you'd have to say was their biggest weakness in the summer, that bloated squad, the plethora of players to pick from, players unable to get changed at the Cobham training facilities because there simply wasn't enough space, etc. Enzo Maresca has now turned that into their biggest positive. So I know it was a 10-man Southampton side in the end, but Chelsea could afford to leave out their leading striker last night, swapping with Nkunku, who is desperate and scrapping excuse me, his way into contention for minutes this season. He started just 2 of 14 Premier League fixtures. And the same can be said for João Felix, whose performances in Europe has meant he's muscled into the Premier League 11. And that's important. It shows that there is a pathway into this team if you're performing. It proves that Maresca isn't full of hot air. You had Levi Colwill, Pedro Neto, Lavia, Badiashile, Jackson all remained on the bench last night. They were all rested. And if you look at the other three, like clearly, I mean, this is obvious. City would struggle without Haaland. Liverpool, the same with Salah, Havertz and Arsenal. Those three sides go into Europe next week. Liverpool at 5:45 on a Tuesday after a midday Saturday lunchtime kickoff. Can they afford to rest and rotate 8, 9, 10 outfield players in Europe? Of course not. And City the same. Arsenal, Villa, United, Spurs, all in the same boat. But Chelsea can, and then some if they wanted. Cole Palmer isn't even in their European squad. So as the fixture schedule becomes a bit of a headache for clubs, especially competing in Europe, I think it gives this informed Chelsea side a bit of a leg up. And given the level they're at right now, come January, February, I wouldn't be surprised to see them still where they are or having even cut the lead to Liverpool. And at 12-1, it's an interesting angle into the title race. Full disclosure, like I mentioned, I think their defence will let them down in terms of going the distance with this squad. I'm not sold on Robert Sanchez in goal, far from it. Jorgensen started in net last night, so I wonder if he's played his way into the starting 11 after impressing in Europe. And overall, I'd probably like a bit more experience back there, ideally to win a Premier League title, like a Thiago Silva type in the middle or an Azpilicueta. Or, I mean, it would be nice if Reece James could not be injured for like 2 games in a row. But yeah, I think I need a little bit more back there to instill in me confidence that they can go and win a Premier League title. But I would just say keep an eye on this Chelsea squad over the festive season because there's a lot of games and I think they'll steadily go about their business as they have done all season.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. Next couple of weeks going to be huge in the Premier League title race. Daniele, anything on the lay of the land in the Premier League before we skip over to South America?
Well, I think this is going to be a very low tally Premier League, as Sam said. Our projection says that the champion can lose up to 6 games, which means Liverpool average 2.5 points per game is going to regress to mean sooner or later. If they continue like this, they'll end up with 95 points, only 4 short than when they last won the title. And I think this is not going to happen. So perhaps in the odds, which are all overestimating everyone's capabilities of winning the Champions League, there is a glitch, there is an issue there. And I think Manchester City at 7 on an each way, which pays also if they finish second with lower odds, of course. I think it represents good value for all that we said so far. Bearing in mind that 9 points advantage is not a lot. Bigger leads have been overturned on 7 occasions in the Premier League. Manchester City did it themselves, and all the 4 teams at the top, they are all overperforming in terms of XG data, but that's not unusual. That's what they always done in the last 5 or 6 seasons. But the season that Liverpool won it with 98 points, they've overperformed by 24 points based on XG, which is the massive overperformance, probably historical. And I don't think they have enough quality, enough strength to repeat that season and to get to that such a high points tally. So I think it's going to be very, very close. And personally, the odds for City are 7, as I said, each way. I'll probably take them.
Interesting stuff. Nathan, over to you. South America. We'll get to Copa Libertadores. We'll get to Brazil in a moment. But can you just touch upon the situation in Argentina? Because very, very 10's very tired. I know there was a bit of a surprise result last night that kind of threw this conversation out a little bit, but 2 games left and still pretty much open in that title race.
Yeah, 3 became 2 last night. If anybody has a spare 3 minutes to go and watch the Racing versus Estudiantes highlights, which was 5-4, was peak South America, penalties, bicycle kicks. It was a beautiful game of football, depending on who you'd actually bet on in that particular match. But Racing fell short. They'd won the last 6 or 7 in a row and were looking really strong after winning the Sudamericana. But it's now between Vélez and Teres. Vélez are 3 points clear with 2 games to go, but sandwiched in between, they've got the Copa Argentina final. Thiago Fernandez, who's one of their star wingers at the age of 20, has just done his ACL. So there's just little things potentially not going right for them. And then the final game of the season, they've got Huracan in 4th place. Yes, they can't do anything, but it'll be a game where they can potentially disrupt the rhythm. And if you go through Velez's recent games, then trust me, they're not a team that you want to watch for pure entertainment. 4 draws in a row, 4 draws out of 5, lots of 1-0 wins. They just don't concede at home. I think they've conceded 2 in the Primera this season. So they were effective. I think they beat Sarmiento, who are a poor side, 1-0 a few days ago. That relied on a penalty there. So losing Thiago Fernandez on the wing, who's highly rated and lots of European clubs are looking at him, maybe that could be the angle for potentially Teres to come in here. So I wouldn't be jumping to about Vélez because of the amount of draws, and if they win games, it's 1-0. And maybe that is a sign of champions if you don't concede. What was that famous Brian Clough once said? If you don't concede, you have half a chance of winning a football match. But I don't know. They just don't have a lot of firepower up top. And like I said, that Copa Argentina game sandwiched in between 3 days before the final day of the season, just adds that a little bit of spice to it. So yeah, 3 became 2 last night at the time of recording, but it's still fairly interesting with 2 games to go.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on, but let's hop across to a more general view of South America and that Copa Libertadores last week. I know you had a bet on from the pod, Nathan. Bottle-Fogo no more.
I was well, I thought it was going to go that way when they got a red card within the first 30 seconds. I mean, I tipped 3 teams to win it at the start of the season, and 2 were Mineiro and Botafogo. So I had the 2 teams in the final, which I was happy about. But Mineiro at 6.0 and then Botafogo at 20s. Obviously, I had a preference on who I wanted to win. But Mineiro came into it in incredibly bad form, hadn't won in 10, and just didn't turn up. I don't think they knew what to do when that bizarre, even for South America, that was crazy to see a team go down to 10 men in 30 seconds. But Botafogo they were excellent. Fair play to them. They dug deep. I think they won it with less than 20% possession, 143 completed passes and 3 shots on target. So it was a real hit and run. But they snatched it and they deserved it over the course of the 10-month season. And it's really interesting, the Libertadores market, and one to keep an eye on February, March next year, because Fluminense were 34.0 the year before and won it. And then Botafogo were as big as 25 this time round. Considering Brazilian teams dominate this particular tournament, I'm not sure why there's always 1 or 2 left out. The market very much just focuses on Palmeiras and Flamengo at really short prices. So it's always good to have a little look elsewhere. And there's so many Brazilian teams now being bought and money being pumped into them. So I'm eager to see next year exactly what the prices are. But no, 2 big winners in a row, I'll absolutely take that.
Yeah, and speaking of big winners, Botafogo have had a fantastic week. When we spoke on the pod at the start of last week, wasn't it? We were expecting the bottle, we were expecting a different situation to what we have now. Botafogo now down to 1.05 to win the title and to win that historic double. They've just got to get a point, haven't they? And it's game over in Brazil.
Yeah, they were really fortunate last night against Internacional, who had 42 touches in the opponent's box, but Botafogo had 1 shot on target and it went in, and they managed to ride it out. I'm not really sure how. I thought that was a game where they were going to stumble and it was going to go to the last game of the season where they almost had to win against Sao Paolo, and we'll get into that game a little bit later on. It's not done and dusted yet. It really isn't. The fact that Esteval stepped up at 17 to score his 14th goal of the season and go joint top for the Golden Boot away to Cruzeiro to keep his team in the title race. I mean, I know Sam was talking about how good Chelsea are going to be this season, but they're adding a lot of South American talent over the next year or so, which are coming into them. And I think they could start to almost dominate part of English football if it all goes well for them. But Esteval, 17, last minute free kick away to Cruzeiro to keep your team in the title race, and he steps up and delivers. Fair play, and it's just made Sunday a little bit more interesting. It would have been a shame to go into the final day of the season when those two have just been at each other for 37 rounds and for Botafogo to have already won it. I mean, if you ask a Botafogo fan, they'll obviously be very nervous coming into this, but as a neutral, it's going to be really interesting because Palmeiras have Fluminense, and Fluminense are playing tonight, and if they win that, they're safe. So they don't have anything to play for. So Palmeiras more than likely to, I think that'd be really skinny odds, more than likely to hammer them there at home. So it's all on Botafogo. And yes, Botafogo no more, but potentially on Sunday.
Yes, we'll see. And as you said, we'll get into that bet a little bit later. But let's bring Daniele
What
in
happens if
here.
they finish level on points, Nathan? Is there a tiebreaker or goal difference?
Palmeiras have a better goal difference at the moment. So, like, if Botafogo lose and Palmeiras win, Palmeiras are the champions. So it's still pretty good going into the last round.
Good, yeah.
These have Palmeiras at 11.0. So we'll see. We'll see if anybody fancies a long shot. Daniele, over to you. Give us your first bet. Let's get on some bets for this week's show. Interesting title race in Serie A as well. It's starting to heat up, isn't it?
Yes, with Napoli still top, but according to our projection, our in-house model, Inter still favorites despite being 4 points behind the leaders. They have a game in hand because the game against Fiorentina was suspended due to Eduardo Bove's illness, and is fortunately recovered. And this weekend starts on Friday with two big games, Inter Parma and then Atalanta Milan. And that's my selection, combining both games, the outcome on both games, and betting on goals, really. Over 2.5 goals at San Siro between Inter Milan and Parma, and Atalanta Milan just across the road in Bergamo, both teams to score yes, which gives you very good odds, 2.20. Let's start talking about Inter. Well, for the first time in a long time this season, they don't have midweek games, so Inzaghi doesn't have to make a lot of rotations. They play next Tuesday at Leverkusen with a good position in the Champions League. The focus at the moment is in the league, and Inzaghi has been very, very clever, giving minutes, spreading the minutes across the squad. So the most used players in Serie A are the not most used players in Champions League, and vice versa. But Inter depth is very good, is very strong, and they can do that. When they play at home, normally they are almost a safe bet for goals. They only lost twice at home since the last season. They failed to score early to take the lead only in 4 occasions since last season. 10 first half goals this season at home as well. But Parma, I think they're going to threaten them. First of all, because the newly promoted side have scored against all the top 7 teams they played so far, and they haven't played Inter. And they like to play on the attack. Attack is the best defense for Fabio Pecchia with Dennis Mann, Mihail, a very young side that I think is going to run at Inter defense, not necessarily leaving them the ball. So I believe Parma, who have a leaky defense in a way, probably can give Inter some headaches. Both teams to score has been a successful bet in 12 out of 14 Parma matches. Talking about Atalanta Milan, I think this is a both team to score because of the form Atalanta have been. No other club has done better in Italy since October. 24 points, 8 wins, although the win at the Olimpico against Roma was a little bit of a scrappy one, but that's probably when they show the mettle. And again, I think in terms of squad strength, Atalanta are as good as Inter. When they bring players in from the bench, the quality doesn't go down. But Milan, on the other hand, they're capable of very good performances. They won at Inter, namely an away game, although it was the derby, won at the Bernabeu. And I think Fonseca has found the right balance with Musa playing on the right, and Fofana in the middle alongside Reinders have unlocked the potential and the creativity not only of the Dutch player as well as Leao, Morata, popping up with goals. I think this is going to be a both team to score. According to our projection, according to Betsy, Atalanta Milan has got a projected goal total of 2.7, second only to Roma, Lecce, and Inter Parma as well, 334 this weekend. So I think, betting on goals on both games and returning odds against 2.20 sounds smart.
Yeah, looks good. Hoping for a pretty exciting Friday night of Serie A football. Just on the Inter Parma match, was there any temptation to put the both teams to score market on there? The goal line set at 3.5, so not the highest odds for 2.5, or is that just there to sort of boost the other one?
Yeah, I think it's. I think because the both team to score didn't pay as much as the over 2.5 goals here. Inter, yes, we know they're vulnerable. They have got the seventh worst defense based on XGA, expected goals against, but also they have kept 5 clean sheet in the last 6, and they kept away Arsenal and Leipzig recently, so they are capable of dogged results. But I think probably this is one. Yeah, if it's an over 2.5 goals, it could be a both team to score. I predicted a high win for Inter. It could be a 3-2 win for Inter, and the other one could become a 2-2. Don't discard Milan ability to get a result. They show they're more than capable.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on Friday night. Daniele, first bet Inter Milan versus Parma over 2.5 goals, and in a double with both teams to score in Atalanta versus AC Milan, you'll get 2.20 for the double. One full unit on that, Daniele?
Yeah, one full unit, of course.
Good stuff. And Sam, over to you for your first bet. You're going discussing the potential title winners, Liverpool, after that 3-3 draw with Newcastle midweek.
The bookies have Liverpool at 1.44 to win the contest, and is Arnie Slot's Liverpool winning home and away versus Everton like a foregone conclusion this season? I'd argue that the answer is an emphatic no. If years gone by are anything to go by, Liverpool have only done the double over Everton twice in the last decade. And you only need to look back to the last meeting where Everton won 2-0 in April, which was their third win in 13 fixtures at the time last season, to figure out that this is one of those derbies, one of those matchups where current form is thrown out the window, as cliche as that is. With the development of Everton's new stadium ready next season, the city of Liverpool will host its last ever Merseyside derby at Everton's Goodison Park. So there's a bit of an edge to this one too. This is the 246th meeting across all competitions between the two, with Liverpool poised for a century of wins as they enter Saturday's contest on 99 victories. So in terms of a selection, Dan, I'm leaning towards unders for this game, and I put this forward yesterday morning. So last night's results read as, I think Everton ended 4-0 at home and Liverpool were 3-3 away in Newcastle, but still the line is come in a little bit over 3.0 and under 3.0, sorry. It's now at 1.75. It was a little bit bigger. But I still wanted to put it up as a bet, and it's obviously a hotly contested and tight affair, these Merseyside derbies. They usually are, and Liverpool have actually lost only 2 of their last 27 Premier League games against Everton, winning 4 of the previous 6. But 9 of the last 13 Premier League head-to-heads between the pair at Goodison Park have resulted in a draw. And in that period, the Merseyside derby has overseen 5 0-0 scorelines. So with that very much ringing around my head, and despite the results last night, I like the unders in this one.
Yeah, looking away from the goals, because I do like the goals angle, but looking more at the results, are you worried that this free-scoring Everton team, which is what we have now, are you worried that the result in midweek for Everton kind of takes the pressure off them a little bit more and would allow them to open up, maybe get, as you said, that last win over Liverpool, potentially at Goodison Park, then, and obviously Liverpool's result dropping points, that piles the pressure on them. They know they have to win. It could be a bit of a ding-dong.
It could be. I'm going to lean on the side of that 4-0 win last night. Maybe it would have relieved a bit of pressure if it was Leicester coming to town, if Brighton was coming to Goodison Park. But as it's Liverpool hopping across Stanley Park, I'm going to say that the pressure is there for Sean Dyche to get a result. And really the pressure is there for them not to lose the game, as I suppose they're expected to by the bookmakers. And for me, digging a bit deeper into like the schedule, which I know I speak about a lot, but this match is the 12:30 kickoff in the UK, the midday TV slot on the Saturday. So that's a quick turnaround from the midweek matches in what is a congested fixture schedule. And this will be Liverpool's 5th match in 14 days. Girona away from home in the Champions League in Spain is on the horizon on Tuesday at 5:45 in that early kickoff. So that will be their 6th fixture in 17 days following an international break with players flying to Africa, South America, etc. So if there is ever a time for a side like Liverpool to look and feel a yard off the pace, maybe it's probably in the early kickoff slot on a Saturday against their fiercest crosstown rivals after a 3-3 in Newcastle on Wednesday night. So for me, everything is maybe geared up to an unders kind of game. Each of the previous 5 matches between the two have seen fewer than 3 goals, and 8 of the last 10 also resulted in under 2.5 goals in the Merseyside derby. So if you consider that was when Jurgen Klopp was in charge, that's when the heavy metal football at Liverpool was, in full flow and emanating from the dugout in recent years. If you consider that, it's now Arne Slot, who is a little bit more controlled. We've mentioned it before. A lot of the games are low scoring. His side hasn't scored more than 3 goals in a Premier League game yet. So if you consider that, then yeah, under 3.0, needing 4 goals in a Merseyside derby in an early Saturday kickoff to lose the bet. I know it's a little skinny now, but I'm happy with that for a unit, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Just the one Premier League win away at Liverpool have just had one Premier League win away at Everton since 2017. Could be tricky. Could be tricky.
And by the way, Dan, last season when Everton beat Liverpool, the odds were even higher than now, 743 against 722. So, stranger things have happened. But it was one of those tricky midweek games toward the end of the week when normally there are surprising goals. This is a weekend games. But yeah, it's not impossible.
Yeah, Everton may struggle without their biggest goal threat, Craig Dawson. But we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. Sam's first bet of the show is under 3 goals in Everton versus Liverpool. That's 1.75, one full unit on net. Nathan, over to you. No titles on the line for your first bet?
No, we'll save that for later on in the podcast. And because of the games tonight, there's no real relegation bets which have been priced up yet. But I have found, I'm going to surprise everyone on the podcast. I'm going to try and be short and sweet with the selection for a change. But there's one I really like. Gremio versus Corinthians over 2.5 goals at 1.909. Both teams to score was 1.8, but that seems to be sliding towards 1.75. So I'm happy to go with 3 goals in this game. So Corinthians have just secured the Libertadores for next season. Considering they were nearly in the relegation zone about 3 months ago, they've been unreal. Gremio have, I think I spoke on the podcast before about the floods which happened in the south of Brazil, which really impacted them. So they look like they were potentially going to get relegated. Luis Suarez obviously moved on and they've done really well. They are now in the Sudamericana and they can potentially finish as high as 10th. So the two teams are going to go into this game like rather relaxed and with an incentive for Gremio to finish as high at the table as possible to get more money, especially what they went through is a massive plus. Corinthians have won their last 6 matches. Yuri Alberto has scored 7 in 7 when he gets priced up. He's not been shorter than odds against around 6-5 in all of those 7 games. I don't understand why. Him and Memphis Depay have been unbelievable together. 20 goals between both of those. But Rodrigo Garro, who's just in behind, has scored 10 goals and 11 assists. Those 3 together have been unreal. And if we look at the recent form for Gremio at home, 2-1, 2-2, 3-1, 3-1, 2-1 defeat. There have been plenty of goals at home. Corinthians, although incredibly strong at home, have been really good away from home as well. Beat Criciúma 4-2, Vitória 2-1 as well. So I just feel like this is going to be open for goals. And Yuri Alberto has said that he wants to go to Europe. Lots of people are going to be looking at him. He wants that golden boot. It's quite a big pitch at Gremio as well, and they've just been making mistakes at the back. So Yuri Alberto, Memphis Depay, and Depay scored a brace midweek in their 3-0 win against Bahia, and an insane free kick. He's loving life in Brazil. And yes, there's nothing on this particular game, but a big pitch, 2 attacking teams. I think it's going to be quite fun to watch. And if you think about the start of the season, sometimes you can get some value when people don't know too much about the teams. I think sometimes there's quite a bit of value in the so-called nothing games towards the end of the season as well. So over 2.5 goals, just shy of evens, but 1.909 is a good price.
Yeah, interesting one. Nathan, these two sides met in the Copa do Brazil earlier this season, back in August, in the, was it round of 16? Two-legged tie. Both games finished 0-0. Are you reading anything into that?
No, because you can look earlier in the season and they drew 2-2 in the reverse leg. And this Corinthians team has just come alive in the last 2 or 3 months. They've been insane. They were on the brink of relegation. And then since bringing in Depay and changing formation and allowing Garro to sit behind Memphis Depay and Yuri Alberto in this sort of more old school 4-4-2 formation, they've just come alive. And they're the best team to watch in Brazil at the moment. So, and if you look at that 2-2 game, Garro and Yuri Alberto scored in that particular match as well. So Copa do Brazil normally has a bit more weight behind it because you get more money for winning that particular competition than you do in the league. So yeah, I wouldn't particularly worry about that. Two relaxed teams coming into this. And don't forget, Gremio have Martin Braithwaite up top and he scored 8 in 17 since he's moved to Brazil. So yeah, he'll be hoping to finish the season on double digits.
Shackles off. We'll see. Certainly see. Is it like is it a thing in Brazil? Players on the beach? Is that just a British thing? This stage of the season,
They're always on the beach.
Everyone's on the beach. You're playing on the beach,
They're
right?
always on the beach. I mean, they only played 3 days ago and were celebrating that they've got into the Libertadores, which is one hell of an achievement. Only 5 teams have outscored them now, and considering they were in the relegation zone 2 months ago, I think they'll just want to keep riding that high. They've won 6 games in a row, so they're not going to rotate. They'll want to finish like with the best team out there. Yuri Alberto wants that golden boot, so they're not going to drop him, and he wants that move to Europe. And there's lots of Premier League teams looking at him. So, yeah, goals.
Goals. One to keep an eye on. Nathan's first bet of the pod, over 2.5 goals in Gremio versus Corinthians. That's a 1.909. One full unit on that, Nathan?
Yeah, let's go for 1 unit. If there was a little bit more on the line, I'd probably go higher, but 1 unit's fine.
Good stuff. Daniele, over to you for your third bet of the show. Another goals angle.
Yeah, Juventus against Bologna. So Thiago Motta against his past, his recent past. And I've been thinking about this Juventus side all week. I mean, unbeaten yet, the only unbeaten side in Italy, the only unbeaten side in Europe alongside PSG and Bayern Munich. But where is the value on betting on Juventus this season? Kings of draws, 18 draws in the calendar year, which is a record, an unwanted record, I guess, although 10 of them were Max Allegri responsibility. But under Thiago Motta, certainly the style of play has changed for Juventus. They are top for possession in Italy, they are top for possession in the opposition half, but only 11th for touches in the opposition penalty area, and they are 17 expected goals, averaging only 4.1 shots on target per game. So obviously, when you look at the stats, Juventus are also first for backward passes and sideways passes. They tend to defend with the ball, which is why they have the best defense in Italy, and that's what Bologna used to do under Thiago Motta last season. They were defending in possession and they were very able to finding the moments. Now with Italiano, Bologna have changed. They play much more direct, and they're finding some confidence. Recently they scored 7 goals in the last 2 home games. But again, where is the value of betting on Juve? Betting on winning the title, the odds are long, but the probabilities are very short. Finishing the top 4, which by the way is what our in-house model projects, the odds are very short, 173, and they should finish with 72 points, with just 1 more point compared to last season, given they recovered the gap they got on last season. Currently, they are minus 7 points. So the only angle to bet on this Juventus side is the goals market. They've been profitable only on the under 2.5 goals market, really, apart from the draw markets compared to last season. That's why I choose the under 0.75 goals line in the first half, so less than 1 goal in the first half, but there is only 1 goal, you get half your stake back or lose half a stake, depending how you wanna see it, which pays well, I think, considering the struggles they had, considering the Bologna away from home against top sides. Yes, they scored 3 against Roma, but it was a Roma in turmoil. But they didn't score against Napoli, didn't score against Aston Villa, didn't score against Liverpool, although they threatened. So for me, despite the return of Dusan Vlahovic, Juventus main threat, this is an under 2.5 goals game. Our projection puts the goal total at 2, right, bang on 2 for Juve Bologna. So you could expect a low scoring game, and probably you could expect a 0-0 at halftime. So I'm gonna stick with under 0.75 Asian line goals in the first half, Juventus Bologna.
Yeah, interesting situation at Juventus right now. You touched upon the sheer volume of draws. It is staggering. It's like, has there been any temptation for you to just go straight down the middle with the 1x2 back in the draw?
Well, probably the Asian handicap plus 0.25 is better in this case for Bologna. You give yourself half a chance, better chance to do that. By the way, the under 0.75 goal line in the first half is 2.12. So again, odds against. Yes, there is a temptation, but they might lose. I mean, Bologna, Juventus here, they might lose the game. I think of all the three unbeaten teams in Europe, I think Juventus are the ones who end their unbeaten streak first compared to PSG and Bayern. And this game against Bologna is probably a red flag. So I'm not convinced that draw is the best outcome.
Okay, very interesting. And just a bit more generally on Juventus, what is going wrong? They can't seem to score at the moment. You mentioned Dusan Vlahovic coming back. Are you expecting him to make a difference? Obviously, he'd been missing for a couple of games.
He is the main terminal, obviously. If they give him the service, he has missed a lot of chances, even last season, and this season leads the chart for missed chances. If they give him the service, he converts 1 in 3, roughly. But I think what Juventus needs is more contribution from the number 10, Yildiz. He plays far too wide on the left, and he doesn't really stands out for in terms of dribbles, chances created, assists. Is the positioning on the pitch, because they got the left back Cambiaso coming inside. That pushes Ildiz far too wide, and I don't think he affects the game as he should. Then you look at Koop Mainers, who last season scored 15 goals for Atalanta, still has to open the scoring, has been out injured. Nico Gonzalez, 16 goals for Fiorentina, he's out injured. Daniele Luiz is basically disappeared. So again, there are a lot of issues around there. But what has to be said is probably the midfielders are the players shining under Thiago Motta. Locatelli is playing really well, for example. But is it enough to challenge for the Scudetto? Probably not. But give Motta a bit of time and back the unders.
Yes, back the unders. I haven't watched Juventus for a couple of weeks. I watched them twice in a row a few weeks ago. No, I was going to say, I watched the 4-4 against Inter, and I watched 2-2 with Parma, and I haven't watched them since. So maybe I'll stay away from this one and hope that we don't see any goals, because Daniele's second bet is under 0.75 goals in the first half of Juventus versus Bologna. That's 2.12. Sam, over to you. Another goals angle in the Premier League.
Yes, Leicester versus Brighton over 3.0 goes at 1.92. Ruud van Nistelrooy very much in the building, kicking off his reign in Leicester in some style. They were 3-0 up at home to West Ham last night, and there was a last-minute Nicholas Füllkrug hammers consolation goal to make it 3-1. That result from a new, fresh-faced Premier League manager might have spelt the end for another. Julian Lopetegui is walking a tightrope at West Ham, but his side did post 3.10 XG. So I know that means very little to him, and it probably won't save him his job. And it certainly didn't send any of the West Ham fans home happy. But it does prove to us that Leicester, as we already know, can be carved open at will on occasion. And equally, Leicester didn't have many attempts at goal. They had 8 shots at goal. Did anyone see how many big chances they had? They only had 8 shots. They had 7 big chances to West Ham's 0, which is crazy. But it kind of makes sense because each goal was well worked. It was intricate play, balls around the corner, passes to split the lines. Some really good finishes. Bobby Reed had a tap-in disallowed, but that was also born from impressive build-up play. Daka showed a bit of pace and a superb finish for the third and Leicester's final goal. So there is goals in this Leicester side. They do create opportunities, and we said it last week away in Brentford. We thought they'd find a goal there, and they did. And I think it will be more of the same again at home, but this time they're up against Brighton, who are, by the way, much, much better than the current version of West Ham, both defensively and in attack. So this is a sterner test, much more difficult for Leicester. But it's hard to make a case for a lack of goals. Over 2.5 has landed in 69% of Brighton games, 71% for the Foxes. So that's 10 out of 14 games. And Leicester City have failed to score in 1 out of 14 Premier League games. That's a better return than Man City, Arsenal, Spurs, Bournemouth. Not better than Brighton. They've also failed to score in just 1 out of 13 games. But they do play tonight, so I'm expecting them to make me look a bit daft and lose 3-0. But yeah, Dan, I just can't see how there's not goals here. So both to score for me and to see 3 or more goals, I reckon, at 1.92.
Yeah, interesting little project going on at Leicester City, isn't it? What do you expect? We've been watching Leicester a while. We saw some big changes on Monday night with the way they set up, the goals they were going, the big chances they were creating. Are you expecting that to continue under Ruud van Nistelrooy? Is there going to be a more of a positive feeling about this club moving forward, about this team moving forward?
I think so, but I think we should also bear in mind that might just be, that game against West Ham may well be a bit of an outlier, because this West Ham team at present, especially turning around and going back towards their own goal, really, really poor. And there was a few instances, I've seen a few videos after the game as well, where West Ham fans are kind of West Ham players, are kind of walking around, not really putting too much effort in, not fighting for their manager, not fighting for a positive result. So, maybe this is the Leicester we should expect going forward. But from a betting point of view in the following weeks, I would just say maybe take a bit of a backseat brief in terms of rushing to back them on any Asian handicaps or results, because that might be an outlier. West Ham are not great at the minute, but it's, they can only beat what's in front of them. It was an impressive result. I don't think anyone really expected them to go 3-0 up probably in Van Nistelrooy's first game. So yeah, fair play to Leicester, but I wouldn't be rushing to back them on any kind of result. But goals, I think that's a fairly good way in, and we've seen under Fabian Hertzler, this Brighton side, they're also good for a goal. So we should be a pretty good game, I think, though.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to if my question was worded a bit better, but no, good. Thanks, Sam. Over 3 goals in Leicester versus Brighton. That's a 1.92. 1 unit on that?
1 unit, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see with Leicester City. They're coming up, obviously, a much more organised team on the weekend. Nathan, back over to South America and over to you for the last, the potential crown jewel for Bottle-Fogo.
Yes, the last hurrah. Botafogo versus Sao Paolo. I was saying to Sam and Danielle before we came onto this particular podcast that Sao Paolo are like Palmeiras' arch rivals. So it's a case of who's going to do who a favour here. They're probably playing the worst team from Palmeiras' point of view. So, but there's reasons to get behind this being a fairly sort of nervous occasion. I think this is where you have to sort of look at the data, but also look at the occasion. And yes, Botafogo did incredibly well in the Libertadores, but their recent home form has not been impressive. So I'm back in Sao Paulo plus 1.5 Asian handicap at 1.82. Maybe a tiny bit short, but I was really surprised to see it that big. I thought it'd be plus 1 or plus 0.75. So 1.5 was quite a big price. So the reason why I'm siding with that, if we look at Botafogo's recent home form, so they've drawn 1-0 with Vitória, drew 0-0 with Cuiabá, drew 1-0 with Criciúma, drew 0-0 with Gremio, and then before that, it was 0-0 with Sao Paulo in the Libertadores. So they've met 3 times already this season, and they've drawn in the league 2-2, and they've drawn in the Libertadores twice. So these are teams Botafogo should have been hammering. If you go through the stats, I think they've had 25 shots plus in all of them, apart from the Gremio game. If you look at the Sao Paulo game, I don't know how they didn't score on that particular occasion, but teams are working out how to frustrate Botafogo. Like Iger Jesus, who's been, an unbelievable signing for them, has worked his way into the Brazilian national team, hasn't scored for a fair few weeks now. And there's so much talent in behind, but this is going to be their their fourth game, not the 11th, their 4th game in 11 days. And look, Palmeiras, Libertadores final with 10 men for the whole game, 97 plus minutes. Then literally it was backs to the walls against Internacional. So yes, adrenaline may be getting them over the line, but I just can't see this getting particularly out of hand. And Sao Paulo's form has been up and down, and yes, they may not have anything to play for, but that means the pressure's off them. They can go there and play some free expansive football. They play a 4-3-3 formation. Lucas Moura's at the heart of that, so he can drive them forward and relieve a bit of pressure at times. And last season, Sao Paulo had the third worst away form in the league. And now, if you look at the table, it's sixth. So there's been a huge improvement. They don't concede too many on the road. They don't score that many. I just don't think it's going to be a game that gets out of hand. And the longer this goes 0-0, depending on what's going on with the Palmeiras result, like it's just going to get a little bit nervy. So I don't see Botafogo going all out and annihilating Sao Paulo, because the last thing they want to do is go a goal behind, because the recent home form just hasn't been strong, and they've just really struggled against teams they should easily be beating. And maybe Sao Paulo is going to be that team to sort of stifle them. So yes, look, Botafogo should pick up the title. I don't think Sao Paulo are going to win the game, but they can frustrate them. And for that Asian handicap line to be plus 1.5, it doesn't really make sense to me if you look at recent form. So it's probably going to be a whitewash now I've said that. But I'm sticking with it, and I think they can frustrate them. And Sao Paulo have had 5 0-0 draws on the road this season as well, so they know exactly how to get a point if they need it.
Yeah, it does seem, from the outside perspective, it does seem quite a high line. I was looking through the stats. Botafogo would have carried this line in just 8 of 37 games in the league this season. They've only won 8 by more than a single goal.
Yeah, and a few of them have come earlier on in the season against newly promoted sides. The only team they've really smashed in the last 2 or 3 months at home has been Vasco, but they had a man sent off and they've been absolutely terrible. But everything else has just been sort of narrow victories here and there, or really frustrating draws. And I think Palmeiras will be kicking themselves that they've not been able to get a little bit closer to them for the final day of the season, considering how many draws they've had. But 3 on for Botafogo, I can see why the bookmakers are pricing it that short, but I'm not going anywhere near that.
Yeah, just need to avoid pretty heavy defeat in order to lift the title, don't they? What's the Brazilian Portuguese expression for squeaky bum time? Is there one?
Well, I think we can just keep it at that.
It translates universal too. Nathan's second
I think it's very similar to the Italian one, but let's leave it. Yeah,
let's leave it at
begins
that.
with
Yeah,
C. Anyway.
We don't want that mature rating
No,
on
that's
Spotify. Sao Paulo plus 1.5 versus Botafogo. That's a 1.82. Nathan's second bet of the show. Is that 1 unit on there?
Yeah, let's go steady. 1 unit.
Good stuff. Right, let's get on with the pod treble. Daniele, do you want to kick us off with your offering?
Let's go to France, to an Italian manager, Marseille, De Zerbi, second in the table at the moment. Best away form ever for Marseille, best away team in Ligue 1, and after 14 games, second only to Marcelo Bielsa in terms of points achieved. So high flying Marseille, although they needed a last minute penalty from Mason Greenwood to beat Monaco. But is this team in transition, a team that changed 13 players in the summer, in and out, so 26 players turnover, and a team that under De Zerbi, I think, still struggles sometimes to unlock low blocks and is quite vulnerable at the back. They suffer heavy defeats. They travel to newly promoted Saint-Étienne, who they're not doing extremely well in the league, but I think they can hurt this Marseille side. So the pick is a both team to score. Marseille are massively overperforming in terms of expected goals for and against. Saint-Étienne have scored in 5 of the last 6 home ties, and yes, of course, they've been defeated 5-0 away to Rennes, 8-0 away to Nice, but when they play at home, I think they can give Marseille something to worry about. It's 177 for both teams to score, which, by the way, they're going to play again, same tie, same stadium on the 22nd December, Saint-Étienne Marseille in the round of 64 of the French Cup. Gianni Infantino, if you're listening to this podcast, please, can we avoid this back-to-back clashes between Cup and League? I hate it. Tonight there is Lazio-Napoli, and on Sunday there is Napoli-Lazio. In the EFL Cup happens far too many times. But can they not change the calendar in a way? Make sure it doesn't happen. But anyway, we're betting on the Ligue 1, both teams to score. Yes.
I would absolutely love it if Gianni Infantino was one of our listeners. That would be fantastic.
They should. Because I
Well,
mean, this is a good change. Avoid
Yeah.
back-to-back games within the same teams.
Universally popular change, I think.
Exactly.
Sam, over to you. Your offering to the treble.
We've been getting a few new followers recently, so he might well be listening. Who knows? I'll have a look at that. Mine is Tottenham vs Chelsea, over 2.5 goals, and Chelsea double chance at 2.05. So I just love goals in this one, and so do the bookmakers. Over 2.5 goals is priced at 1.40. Both teams to score 1.36. Lump the two together, it's 1.53. So you'll need to go a little bit higher if you want anything near or above evens. And I've already waxed lyrical about Chelsea already, so I'll leave it there. But we can get over 2.5 goals on our side at a healthy looking price of 2.05 if you just add Chelsea win or draw. It's not a bet I'd usually take. I'd usually opt for Chelsea result on both teams to score, but can see this ending 2-2, 3-3. I really think this is a 90-minute period that could explode, especially with an early goal. And with everything I've mentioned previously, with Chelsea's ability to rest, rotate, bring in real, genuine Premier League quality into the side who are all desperate for minutes and desperate to impress, I think Chelsea might just edge it, or at least have enough to leave there with a point in a high-scoring game. So yeah, over 2.5 goals, Chelsea double chance 2.05.
Yeah, very interesting one. Went 2 for 2 out of 3 on the treble last week, didn't we? Again, I think that's happened.
Yeah.
I think pretty much every episode we've had. So, Nathan,
Scott was on the last podcast bragging how I think he was the only one who got his pod treble right, and he was the only one to let it down this week. So I have to call him out in his absence. So if you're listening, Scott, thanks a lot.
Yeah, there's a reason why
Stay
he's not on
humble.
the show. Yeah,
Stay humble, Scott. Yeah,
stay humble. Nathan, over to you. Let's close it out.
Yeah, mine's a little bit random, but I quite like it. Juventus draw no bet at evens against Cruzeiro. Cruzeiro, this is a game they need to win if they want to get into the Libertadores, and they're a team who have put a lot of money behind them. So if they get into the Libertadores, I think it's going to be a lot of money pumped into their squad in the off season. But I don't see it happening. Juventus, who were promoted this season, had a really strong start to the season at home. Sort of petered out a little bit, but they've won 3 out of their last 5, unbeaten in those 5 as well, and they've managed to stay up, which not many people predicted, where Cruzeiro come into this winless in 5, obviously lost in the last minute to Palmeiras overnight. They haven't won away in the league since July, although that was a 3-0 battering against Botafogo, which was very bizarre. It was just one of those random games. But if you look at Juventus' home form, they've lost 3 out of their last 10, but that was against Palmeiras in a 5-3 game, which was also a little bit insane. Lost 3-1 to Internacional, but that was when in the middle of their ridiculous 15-16 game unbeaten run, and they're one of the best teams in Brazil at the moment. And they lost 4-0, so lost 3-0 to Fortaleza, but honestly, that was just a game which could have gone either way. I know that sounds mad to sort of say, but they've been really impressive at home, and they come into this, yes, it may be a nothing game, but they want to close out the season in style. They've been pretty strong at home, considering they've only just been promoted. Cruzeiro, the pressure's on them, and they just can't seem to deliver at the moment. So I think they may have to settle for Sudamericana, but evens for a draw no bet, I'm happy to take that. And if it peters out as a draw, then at least I won't get called out for losing on the pod, and we can have a 2 out of 3 winner.
You might be invited back next week, yeah. Put them all together. The odds have actually gone up on that, Nathan, up to 2.10. So a little bit of a
That's
bonus.
never a good sign, is it?
Worrying. Bad omen. Okay, so we're tracking that for a quarter of a unit. Put them all together for a treble of 7.53. So fingers crossed is the one we
You can
get the
either
full
back
house for.
that or Man City to win the league. The choice is yours.
Just put the money straight in the bin if you want. It's the same thing. Okay, let's recap the bets. Daniele, do you want to kick us off with all of your selections for this week?
So Friday night in Italy, it's Inter Atalanta over 2.5 goals. Inter Parma over 2.5 goals. Atalanta Milan both team to score yes together 2.20, and then Juventus Bologna under 0.75 goals in the first half 2.12.
And Sam?
Yes, I've gone for Everton versus Liverpool under 3.0 Asian goals at 1.75 for a unit, and also over 3.0 goals at 1.92 in Leicester versus Brighton for a unit.
And Nathan?
Seems to be the goal show this week, doesn't it?
It is.
Gremio Corinthians over 2.5 at 1.909, and Sao Paolo on the Asian handicap plus 1.5 against Botafogo 1.820.
Very good. And pod treble. Sam's offering is draw or Chelsea and over 2.5 goals in Tottenham versus Chelsea. Nathan's is Juventus to draw no bet versus Cruzeiro, and Daniele is going for both teams to score in San Etienne versus Marseille. That comes to 7.53 if you back it as a treble. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly. Only bet what you can afford to lose. Thank you very much to Daniele Fischella.
Thank you very much. Speak soon.
Thanks again, Nathan Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam Ingram.
Thank you very much.
And thank you from me. We'll be back next week.